Hack the Entrepreneur is part of Rainmaker FM, the digital business podcast network. Find more great shows and education at rainmaker.fm. Hack the Entrepreneur is supported by Citi Cards with Android Pay. Listening on your phone? Now you can pay while you listen using the same device. Just tap and go. Download the Android Pay app on Google Play or visit citi.com/androidpay to get started. Android Pay is available for eligible Citi consumer credit and debit cards.
Welcome to Hack the Entrepreneur, the show which reveals the fears, habits, and inner battles behind big-name entrepreneurs and those on their way to joining them. Now here is your host, John Naster.
Welcome back to Hack the Entrepreneur. I'm so glad you could join us again. My name is John Naster, but you can call me Johnny. Today's guest spent 7 years bootstrapping his startup, Beat the GMAT, and it all started from his Stanford dorm room in 2005. With a personal investment of just $4 and a ton of sweat equity, he built his startup until it was acquired in 2012 by education powerhouse Hobson's. He is currently traveling the world on a 2-year sabbatical with his wife, and in his spare time, he's an advisor to several companies and organizations. Now, let's hack Eric Bahn. Before we get rolling here, I want to take a moment to thank today's sponsor, Braintree. I know you remember the first dollar you made in business. It's a hard thing to forget. It's one of the greatest parts of being an entrepreneur. And now you want to grow until your business makes your millionth or billionth dollar. But have you found the right payments partner to grow with you? Braintree lets you accept every way to pay, from PayPal to Apple Pay and everything in between. All it takes is one simple integration. And it doesn't matter what currency your customers use because Braintree lets you accept over 130 of them. To learn more about how you and your company can grow with Braintree, visit braintreepayments.com/hack. That's braintreepayments.com/hack. Welcome to the show, Eric.
Thank you so much, John. Appreciate your inviting me here.
Oh, this is going to be fun. A lot of fun. So let's just jump right into it, shall we?
Mm-hmm.
Eric, can you tell me, as an entrepreneur, can you tell me specifically what you do that you think other people don't, that has been a big contributor to your success so far?
Yeah, certainly. I've been reflecting on this quite a bit in terms of what has helped me be successful over the past couple of years. And, I'm evolving all the time as you are and everyone else is. But I think the one thing that's been pretty consistent in the last decade has been my habits. So I'm very obsessed with having a daily ritual of some small activities that I pursue and make sure that I complete before the day is done. And it's not actually all related to building or developing a business. Some things related to as small as like stretching or reading 20 pages of a book. Or what I'm doing right now is actually studying how to do some post-processing for photography, because that's a new hobby that I really want to develop. And what I find, though, is even though these small habits, related to business or not, are tiny and can be somewhat inconsequential, it actually is like a really great mental exercise for me to stay rigorous and disciplined in pursuing sort of bigger projects over time that have many small components. So coupling that with my fact that I'm obsessed with keeping small habits and refining them, and also a related kind of fact that I am obsessed with productivity tools and task management tools. I have this kind of a basket of activities and projects that I can track and measure all the time to make sure that I'm moving the ball forward. I'll say one plug about one task management tool I'm currently using is called Trello. So Trello, Trello. It's actually a project management tool for, things like software development, or even I've heard it used for construction management projects. But I use Trello exclusively for managing my tasks, so I can see, different states of completion, and have a running archive of what I've completed every week. So I think it's my habits that have been really helping me in the past decade.
Trello, I actually had never used it until yesterday.
Very good. That's right. And for, I guess, any of your audience that's not familiar with the tool, it's based on this concept of a Kanban board. And you can imagine that as being, let's say it's like a big cork board. And traditionally in a Kanban board, there's, I believe, three columns. So you can imagine putting a Post-it note in either to-dos, like your backlog, in progress, and I think the last one's completed. So you can imagine have all these tasks in your to-do list, and then each day or each week, you can start to move those Post-its over to the in-progress bucket. And then when you're done, you can see them moved into that last completion bucket. The cool thing about Trello is you can have unlimited number of columns. So I actually do have the backlog, the to-dos. I have the in-progress. I have another column actually that's really helpful called waiting for a response, which has a giant backlog right now. Everything from paying my utility bill and asking a question about that to some customer payments I'm waiting. And then I have a done board, which I review each week and then clear out each week. So I can sort of celebrate my successes at the very end of the week, which is really satisfying.
So you have a daily ritual and tiny habits. And so you're working on your post-processing of photos because it's a habit you want to, or something you want to learn, and so it's a habit you're doing.
That's right.
Is there a habit right now that you are trying to develop, but you're having trouble, like struggling to adopt it into your life?
Yeah, there is. So I am sadly quite a couch potato. And, exercise has been something that I've not really prioritized too much in my life. And I think I've paid the consequences for it. I actually did have some health problems earlier in my 20s that were sort of a pain to deal with that might have been preventative if I had just been better at exercising all the time. So it's been a problem because it's just not part of my lifestyle, but it is something I do want to build in right now. And the way that I'm doing it, again, through a tiny habit, is I've set a small goal, which is by the end of this month to be able to touch my toes, because I can't do it. And so I found some sort of stretching exercises and this little routine that you can go through that takes about 5 minutes a day. And it's the first thing that I do when I wake up now. It's on the top position permanently on my daily tasks, which is going through this tiny routine, measuring my progress slowly towards the ground. And, once I get done with the stretching, I might do something that's related to strength building. So it's a long journey ahead, but I'm inching my way into becoming a little bit more healthy.
Do you think it's kind of, you're living right now as your blog name is, Life After Liquidity, right? Mm-hmm. You sold your business almost 2 years ago now, was it?
That's right. Yeah.
And so you're you're in a good place right now, right? You don't have to work 40 or 50 or 60 hours a week, or possibly at all. Well, I believe you are, you're an advisor to, I think, about 5 or 6 companies right now. So that probably keeps you somewhat busy, but do you find it harder when you do have this time off, you're on this sabbatical with your wife, traveling the world, to keep up habits, especially like exercise and stuff like that? Is there a way that you're dealing with that and making sure that you do not just completely turn into a couch potato, but that you're kind of stimulating your brain, and also maybe are you out there looking for another project to start?
Yeah, no, that's a great question too. And I think about this quite a bit. So you're right. I do have this wonderful luxury right now of having the time to, pursue all these tiny little hobbies, pursue all these tiny little habits. The way that I sort of think about it is this. So I do plan to get back into a project soon. Something that's full-time, will probably be intense like my previous company. But the way that I'm sort of approaching it is, before you go into this, let me use this metaphor, I guess. Before you're dropped into a war zone, you first have to go through a boot camp to prepare you with the skills and get you conditioned so that when you're on the ground in a live theater, you'll be in good shape, or you can at least have a higher chance of success. And that's sort of where I view myself right now is, if I could take advantage of this time to put myself in a place where there are certain habits that I really, really prioritize and care about, then I will find time to make time for them later. And I'll sort of share one other kind of habit. So in the spirit of actually being prepared for the intense work life that will at some point hit me, I'm also like shifting back my time that I wake up eventually to get to waking up at 5 a.m. every day. And, I'm also like a night owl. That's been something I've done all the time. But part of the reason of why I want to wake up earlier is so that I will have time before work. If I can get up at 5, then hopefully that'll give me at least an hour or two to, do these kind of like 5-minute exercises that I have here and there. And I'm pretty sure that if I started working now and had that intense sort of startup schedule, I would certainly lose a lot of the habits I've been trying to build to date. But if I can get to a place where I can complete all these habits within an hour in the morning at 5 o'clock, then I'm a lot more optimistic that I can stick to the schedule, even though it's going to be a lot more intense later on. Does it make sense?
Yeah, it really does. And it's interesting seeing you. It seems like you really, really got to enjoy a well-deserved break. And that's amazing because that's what, business owners, especially online, to get your company purchased and have the deal work out right and then be able to take the time for yourself and with your wife and now family and visiting friends and kind of, life is really, really about that. But then it's also about the cool projects and the stuff we do get to build, right? That can go on beyond us.
Yeah.
And it's neat to see you seem like you're doing it really well. And now it almost seems like just from talking to you this little bit that your brain is going like, okay, now it's time to get back to work though.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. So, but can you tell me, so you must be sort of in that mode of looking for a new project, or do you have an idea, or how do you look for a new project or a new business venture now to pursue, say in the next 6 months or something?
Yeah, that's right. Actually, even before I answer this question, which I do want to answer, I want to talk a little bit about why I took the break. Okay. And John, I think this will be useful for you too, because you're an entrepreneur and can certainly empathize. So for about I ran my startup for 7 years before it was acquired, and then 2 years as a director of products in the parent company that purchased my business. And it was a really, really intense decade. I think it was an incredibly satisfying decade in the sense that I learned a lot, but I made a lot of mistakes in the sense that I did not pace myself well. So there were times where I was working, over 100 hours a week, many times like that. I would run death marches with my team where we would release a product at like 7 o'clock in the morning. And we had been already working since 7 o'clock the previous morning, to prepare for the launch. And so, by the time I was ready to leave my company, I was really burnt out. I don't think I would have been ready to move on to another job because I just was not in a mental state to perform well in it. So that's also kind of a little bit more context as to why I care so much about the habits, which is whatever I do next, I want to make sure that it's done in a very sustainable way. No more death marches where I'm working my team super late at night, but a little bit better lifestyle that's healthier, more well-rounded. So it's not just me being the business all the time. So that's been great in the sense that I have had the luxury of being able to travel and take some time off. But it's been almost like doctor's orders for me that I just needed to rest and put my mind at ease for a little while. All that said, sort of now touching on the question that you had raised, it was really, really hard to actually shut off my mind for a bit, to focus on very few things, enjoy, the ocean view in front of me, or even the little things. I think I was able to achieve a bit of it, but my mind started to wander back into the life that I had before and pursuing like a project that's bigger than me. And it's just too exciting to not think about, new possibilities, new businesses and so forth. So I think I was able to achieve what I wanted to from Sabbatical, but I also failed to some degree. I'm already calling it. in that like I couldn't completely shut down, simply because, as John, as you fully understand, like the startup life is so addictive. It's terrible in in many moments, but it's also just incredibly wonderful. So I just feel I'm getting drawn back in, and the way that I'm looking at projects right now is I'm keeping an open mind. One thing that I do pretty well, and this is a lesson I learned in the last couple of years, is just make sure that I'm staying in touch with my network. And the way that I do that is, here's a couple of tips actually. One is annually I send out a funny kind of mass email that's relatively personalized to folks I just want to stay in touch with. And then on a more kind of day-to-day, week-to-week level, I just like grabbing drinks or meeting up with folks in person and just, hearing, just chatting, no real agenda, but just hearing what's going on. And from those kinds of activities, just opportunities seem to come by. So I don't have to, I guess, directly, pursue anything specifically. I can sort of just like hear what people are working on. And if there's a fit, then there's a fit. If not, then no worries. So I've been taking a very, I guess, passive approach to this process, but I feel like it's the right way for me.
Yeah. And again, listening to you now, there's no doubt in my mind that you are absolutely an entrepreneur because one thing you think that you might have failed at your sabbatical because you couldn't stop thinking about other stuff, which I don't know how you possibly fail a sabbatical, honestly, Eric. I think that's part of what you're trying, like you're just getting away, just doing whatever, right? To me, it's like meditation in like the broad sense. I don't think anybody can teach you to meditate. I don't think there's a way to fail at meditating as long as you just sit there quietly. I mean,
I'll define sort of why there's like very specific things that I think about as to why I might have. I'm not going to give myself like an F on this, maybe like a C- on the sabbatical front. So on the one hand, I did it. I was able to travel, and that's great. I can say that I did it. But there's when I think about true kind of restful sabbatical, it's actually feeling 100% present in whatever you're doing. So an example would be in Croatia, which is my last trip. I was on this awesome chartered boat, and we were swimming around in the Adriatic Sea, which is beautiful, really warm and lovely. And there were moments I caught myself where, as I was in the water, treading in this beautiful sea, watching the beautiful landscape, I should have just been 100% focused on, wow, this is really cool. I'm swimming in this sea with my wife and my friend at the time who joined us. And, we're in this unique place together, and I have my health, like everything is really wonderful. But there were some, ideas that I was also running through my mind of like, later on, I want to be, noting this, and this. I'm going to send myself an email when I get back to the boat because I don't want to forget it. So it's sort of like that mindfulness perhaps was lost a bit. And that's something I feel like I need to practice more and it doesn't have to be an amazing trip that you have to take. It could be just moments of hanging out with your buddies or your wife or your son or daughter and just being 100% present there because, again, like just going back to how startups could be an addiction, sometimes you find yourself being pulled back into that mindset of, if I did this, and this, or I don't want to forget this. And that just dilutes the whole experience.
The mindfulness is really big. And I have a daughter, she's 9, but it's something, I forget where I read it a couple of years ago, and I've used this just because you're right. Like people can be listening and be like, oh, well, I don't get to go to the Adriatic Sea and just do all this stuff. You know what I mean? That's a whole different story. But I mean, I have a daughter, and the thing I learned early on, when you watch a kid playing with something and they can just, whether it's Legos or a coloring book or the simplest puzzle, and they'll just sit there for hours and never get bored and stop smiling and giggling about it. And I've learned to try and just completely become a kid and just go into that, and everything they do, you just kind of do it with them and try and just even slightly have as much fun as you see them having. And to me, that's just such presence. And it's like, wow, if I could bring this, and that's something that everybody can do. Everybody, whether you have a kid or not, but you can be around nieces or nephews or cousins. And I mean, it's an amazing thing that I do think we lose that as we get older, which isn't good. But But doing my research on you earlier, Eric, and looking at you from the picture, I think it was on VentureBeat when you sold your company, and now 2 years later on your blog, you look a lot more relaxed. I gotta say, so you've done something right. I'd give you at least a B on your sabbatical so far.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that. I saw my mom the other day, and she hadn't seen me since before this trip, and she was like, "You look way better than you did before." I think partly because I had gone through this long hair phase also, and she was kind of colored by the fact that I recently got a haircut. But yeah, I do get the fact that I do get the compliment all the time that I look far more relaxed, and I think just reflecting on, or I guess letting go of a lot of things as part of this trip has been so important. And John, if you or any of our audience members do go through some sort of exit with their own businesses or as part of a business that they're already employed in and can take some time off, just, even 6 months, I think is huge. If you can sort of save up for it and plan it out right. So yeah, I hope to do this again in a couple of years because it's been just so great for my life.
Yeah, I agree. 10 years building your business, with the combined 2 years working for the head company that kind of took it over. You were really stressed. You worked and worked and worked and worked and worked. I would love to hear the story about that last day when you finally got that check or that contract that said, "You're done. Here's the money. Tomorrow you don't have anything to do." I would love to hear that story.
Yeah. So, this story actually ended up being far more different than what I was anticipating. So I've heard stories of other founders who had, almost like existential, joyful moments when they received their check or incredible satisfaction. For me, it was highly anticlimactic. So the fact that I knew this day was coming just because, as we were working through the deal, which took several months, we knew what that date was going to be for quite some time. And it was just, another task that needed to be done along with a string of other things in order to complete the deal. But, when I received it, it was great to know that, we had a bit of liquidity. That's where my blog, Life After Liquidity, is called, sort of, a little bit of cash in the bank, basically, where I would have freedom to take trips or start other businesses or not work for a while if I chose that path. That's all great. I did think about that, and I was highly grateful for that. But it was super anticlimactic in the sense that, what's next? It wasn't really clear to me what would happen next in terms of my longer term future. Would I stay with the parent company? Would I do something else? The other thing that sort of compounds the anticlimaticism of that moment is the fact that you get no break between when you sign the deal and when you start working and integrating your business. And this is actually a huge mistake that we made. So, John, one day when you build your huge ass business and get to, an awesome acquisition, work in like a 2-week vacation, because the integration process is even more intense than the acquisition process. That's not something I was anticipating at all. What followed was like 6 months of complete hell and it's not on the acquiring party's part either. Like they're great, but it's just intense when you try to integrate your business, making sure that everyone has a job still, like at your company, or doing even mundane things like making sure that their paychecks get uninterrupted the next Friday. That stuff is actually very, very difficult, and there's tons of work to do. So integration, that was the very next thing that happened. And I've never actually admitted this last part too about why this is sort of an anticlimactic moment. And this is actually something I'm a little bit ashamed of, but I'll tell you, John. This is just how it shows you the power of greed. I was happy, but then my mind started to think about like other entrepreneurs I had known who had done even bigger deals and got bigger checks. And then, I started thinking like, well, I could do that too. Maybe I should just go into another startup and try to get a bigger paycheck than they did.
Wait, let's hear that again.
This is just how it shows you the power of greed. I was happy, but then like my mind started to think about like other entrepreneurs I had known who had done even bigger deals and got bigger checks. And then, I started thinking like, well, I could do that too. Like maybe I should just go into another startup and like try to get a bigger paycheck than they did.
And that's the hack.
I don't know how I feel about that. I never like admitting that to people, but that it's a feeling that you might anticipate, actually, or maybe your members can anticipate if they go through that kind of experience, and hopefully they can be a little bit more wise and have their perspective. Like, maybe I'm just being greedy, or this isn't the right mindset to think about. I should just sort of enjoy the successful moment and then like leave it.
Thank you so much for sharing, because that's a huge thing, I think, for a lot of people. I mean, at different level, like almost at any level, right? Even when your business just starts off and you're making you're bringing in like revenue of $10,000 a month, and 2 years prior, I went through this. It was like, if I could ever bring in $10,000 a month, my life will be set, right? And then 10,000, it's just like, well, there's no way my life is set. And then it's just like, but what about the people bringing in $50,000 a month? Then you get there, and then it's just like, but what about the people bringing in 200? And then it's like, when is this going to stop? Like, what do I possibly need? And I think it's human, and it's probably good to go into those things, I think, being aware of that maybe in advance. And now, I mean, you've learned it, you've lived through it. And the fact that you shared that with everybody, I really appreciate it, because that's really something that, you need to find that happiness. You need to know what it is that makes you happy and not worry about what goes on around you and who's got bigger, and they have a bigger TV, do they have a faster car? It doesn't matter, right? As long as you're happy with your bicycle or your whatever it is, right? It just doesn't matter. It really doesn't, as long as you're happy from it.
Yeah, that's right. And I think, John, you summarized it really well. And it constantly amazes me. There's a lot of where I live in the San Francisco Bay Area, a lot of rich tech entrepreneurs and investors, and a lot of unhappy people at the same time. And that surprised me when I was sort of like in the pre-acquisition days of, these guys seem to have everything. Like, why are they upset? And there's a strong culture of keeping up with the Joneses where I live right now. Maybe that's sort of like in a couple cities in the U.S. are like that. The Silicon Valley area, as well as like New York, I hear is pretty bad too about the keeping up with the Joneses, and that's an impossible path. It's a game you never win. So,
you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Eric, for sharing, for joining us. I've learned a lot. I know that other people will, and I hope you enjoyed it too. We've talked about your blog a lot and mentioned it briefly, but can you just tell people where to go find it and where to contact you?
Yeah, certainly. So first of all, John, really appreciate the opportunity. Thank you so much for inviting me to your show, and congrats too on what you're going to be accomplishing with Hack the Entrepreneur. It sounds like an amazing business, and I look forward to following it.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. So the blog, it's lifeafterliquidity.com. I write about travel and financial independence and entrepreneurship there. So feel free to take a look. And I'm also pretty active on Twitter. So you can follow me at Eric Bahn. That's ERICBAHN. And if you send me tweets, I will respond to you.
He does. That's how I found him. And you did. You responded right away. It was great. And yeah, definitely. I'll put links to your blog and your Twitter on the show notes for people. They should go check out and I'm actually going to put it to the Venture Beat article, and people can see just how much more relaxed and happy you look now. Thank you again very much. This has been a lot of fun, Eric, and I look forward to getting this out to everyone.
My pleasure, John. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much for spending your time and joining us here at Hack the Entrepreneur. I truly appreciate you doing that. If you haven't yet, please stop by the website, hacktheentrepreneur.com. And I'm going to have links to Eric's previous business, his blog now, and where you can track him down on Twitter, and tell him you heard him on Hack the Entrepreneur. I love seeing people do that. Hacktheentrepreneur.com. You're going to see a subscribe button at the top. Please click that button and get on my newsletter. I'm sending out an email once a week only. All the best stuff I'm finding in my business and with the brilliant people I'm talking to every week at Hack the Entrepreneur. The best part is